Good morning, it's February 9th, and this is To My Liberal Friends. Yesterday, two things of importance happened in Washington. First, the Supreme Court heard arguments in the case of whether Donald Trump should be removed from the ballot in the state of Colorado. Second, the special counsel issued their report on Biden having classified documents in an improper storage facility. Addressing the first issue, the Supreme Court hearing the arguments on the ballot case, if you listen to the questioning by the justices of the lawyers on both sides, it seemed to me that justices were leaning towards dismissing this case. Basically, over what they mean, they'd be overturning the Colorado State Court. If that is indeed the case, it would put an end to all this foolishness of various people trying to go to court and other states to remove Donald Trump from the presidential ballot. The Secretary of State in Maine will look foolish for having done it without even a court order. Justice Kagan, appointed by a Democrat, questioned whether one state should decide on behalf of the entire country who the president should be. She said, quote, "Why should a single state have the ability to make this determination not only for their own citizens, but also for the nation?" End quote. Now, she remarked that it seems awfully national to me. Justice Barrett was also skeptical, quoting her, If we affirmed and we said he was ineligible to be president, yes, maybe some states would say, well, we're going to keep him on the ballot anyway. But really, it's going to have, as Justice Kagan said, the effect of Colorado deciding." End quote. Justice Brett Kavanaugh threw a series of questions at Colorado Attorney Jason Murray in an attempt to nail down whether it's the states or Congress that can ban insurrectionists from holding office, quoting him, "When you look at Section 3, the term insurrection jumps out, and the questions are, what does that mean? How do you define it? Who decides? Who decides whether someone engaged in it?" End quote. Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, appointed by Joe Biden, was also expressing concern by referencing the actual language of Section 3, quoting her, "Why didn't they put the word president in the very enumerated list in Section 3? The thing that's really troubling me is I totally understand your argument, but they were listing people who were barred and the president is not there. And so I guess that just makes me worry that maybe they weren't focusing on the president." End quote. Chief Justice Roberts warned that if the court ruled in favor of the plaintiffs, some states would interpret that to mean they could kick off Democrats or Republicans from the ballot. Chief Justice Roberts was also concerned about the daunting consequences, where only a handful of states could decide the President of the United States. Roberts made an important point that the 14th Amendment was historically meant to take power away from the states, but if Colorado were able to proceed, it would expand the power of the states. It's expected the court will issue a decision within a couple of weeks at the longest. There's no deadline for them to make a decision, but the importance and urgency of the decision will guide them in determining a ruling quickly. Based on oral arguments and the questions to lawyers yesterday, I believe the vote will be 9-0 to overturn the Colorado court. The other big news story surrounds the investigation by special counsel of President Biden having classified documents stored at both his Delaware home and the University of Pennsylvania Center in Washington, D.C. The most damning comments in the reports, at least for the Biden campaign, were these, quote, "We have also considered that, at trial, Mr. Biden would likely present himself to a jury, as he did during our interview with him, as sympathetic, well-meaning, elderly man with a poor memory." Special counsel Robert Hur wrote in this report, quote again, "Based on our direct interactions with him and our observation of him, he is someone from whom many jurors would want to identify as reasonable doubt. It would be difficult to convince a jury that they should convict him, by then a former president well into his 80s, of a serious felony that requires a mental state of willingness." End quote. The special counsel recommended that no charges be filed, and this should be good news to Donald Trump, because it would be very difficult to continue to prosecute him now that Biden has basically had his hands slapped. But there are some questions that are unanswered. Biden was in possession of documents dating back to his days as a U.S. Senator. How did he get those documents out of the sensitive compartmental information facility known as a SCIF? I reviewed documents in that SCIF in the Senate while a staff member there, and you could not remove them or take notes about them and remove the notes. Some of you will remember Sandy Berger stuffing documents in his socks to remove them from a SCIF. So I'm not sure how Joe Biden came into possession of those documents. Not sure how they continue charging Trump for basically the same thing as Biden. If they continue to proceed, it will become apparent there are two standards of justice in this administration. But the comment referring to Biden as a, quote, "a well-meaning elderly man with poor memory," end quote, only emphasized that Biden is too old to be president. But they're seeing this comment as Biden's recent comments about meeting with Francois Mitterrand, the president of France, when he died in 1996, then using the same story, saying he met with German Chancellor Helmut Kohl when Kohl had died in 2017. And according to Biden, these meetings took place at the G7 meeting in 2021. The president of France at that time was Emmanuel Macron, and the Chancellor of Germany was Angela Merkel. Now, Biden held an impromptu press conference last night where he blamed everyone else for having the documents, and then questioned about the war in Gaza. He said he had a conversation with the president of Mexico about getting more aid to Gaza. Of course, he was actually meaning that he spoke to the president of Egypt. This is one of the clear signs of onset dementia. There are people suffering from the disease can remember things from years ago, but have difficulty with more recent memory events. I've seen it in my own family. I once visited my grandmother who had dementia, and she can remember things clear as a bell from 25, 30 years ago, but 3 times in the conversation she had to ask who I was. This is why we need an age limit on office, and I would suggest that both Biden and Trump are too old. Anyway, this is To My Liberal Friends. Thanks for listening.